What am I doing? I'm attempting to dance like Selena, because clearly I can't sing like her. Como la flor. See, I tried. What's going on, you guys? James here with another Reel review, and no, I'm not going to try dancing anymore. Instead, I'm going to talk about Selena the series debuting exclusively on Netflix this Friday. Thank you, Netflix, for sharing the screener with me. It was a blast, and then there were some moments that didn't work too well. So guys, before we get into any of that, if it's your first time here at the channel, welcome to Reel James, where I review stuff like this early all the time. So if you haven't, go ahead and get subscribed to the channel below and help us get to 3,000. And if you haven't, guys, like this video and get loud in the comments and let me know what you thought of this series when you see it. And if you haven't already, are you excited to see Christian Serratos playing Selena? The majority of the show is directed by Hiromi Kamata, and it stars, like I said, Christian Serratos playing Miss Quintanilla. She plays Rosita from The Walking Dead, so if you liked her acting there, guys, it's better here. And this might sound funny, but I was introduced to Selena's music through the 1997 film with Jennifer Lopez, who did an amazing job in that movie, and here, I would say Christian Serratos is giving her a run for her money. But before we dive into exactly that, how she did as Selena, let's talk about the series as a whole. I do like how it opened, which was Selena as a child. Actress Madison Taylor Baez, who plays young Selena, man, if that was her singing, boy, she has amazing vocals. And I did like that they made this more of a family-centric feel. However, that didn't always work. But guys, let's not get negative. Let's get right into the positives. And at the top of the list is Christian Serratos. She captures Selena's very bubbly, optimistic, and positive attitude very well. She's also a scene stealer, and when she is performing on stage, she has an amazing presence. I was captivated, honestly. Every movement, all of the vocals, it just flowed so well, and it worked, and Christian Serratos did an amazing job at just really allowing the audience to feel how much passion she put into this performance. When we see Selena y los Dinos performing together, it's fun, and honestly, it is a nice escape from the other areas that the show was a little bit weaker in. Now, it hasn't been said whether or not Christian Serratos was singing, but if she was, guys, oh my goodness, she did an amazing job. I also like the decision to mix in this vintage style of filming every now and then. It really just adds the cherry on top for me, and also I'm sure for a lot of Selena fans, because it allows Christian Serratos to really feel like Selena in that moment. I mean, yes, the hairstyles are great, she really looks like her, but when you see that grainy film effect on top of the screen, boy, it adds a different layer of authenticity. I was also a big fan of the costume design for Selena, and honestly in this series as a whole. Each of Selena's outfits were just chef's kiss, and fans are going to really appreciate that they showcase some of her more iconic pieces. I really loved just how everything looked for Selena. It really did feel real for me. I also really appreciated that the show spent time with Selena and her sister Suzette, played by Noemi Gonzalez. Seeing them design outfits together with all the glitter and flair, it really just fit. And honestly, speaking of those two, I love their dynamic together. And that brings me to my next point, which is, man, their chemistry together was the best in every episode. Their sisterly bond is the only time I actually felt something between any of our cast. And this series does spend a great deal of time trying to really touch on the relationships in Selena's life, whether they be with her and her father, her and her brother, or even her and her mother. But when they do break it down and we get Christian Serratos and Noemi Gonzalez together, that's when I think the show feels very natural. It was just so cool to see them talk about first kisses, traveling together, and even working out their frustrations, but this is where the show thrives. Now, with all of that being said, yes, Christian Serratos does a really good job as Selena. I do like her dynamic with Noemi Gonzalez, and the costume design was great. But as an overall series, when you get past all those positives, for me, this was a disappointment. There's this fluffy soap opera tone to this show that never allowed it to feel very natural for me. This even happens in the pilot episode, which, guys, it's very rough. There's a lack of any drama, and when the show tries to prop up a high-stakes scene, it almost pulls back and then immediately adds a playful tone. The score becomes overbearing, and then all of the dialogue becomes cheery again. And that is a little sad for me, because there should have been moments where dire consequences were attached to the actions of our characters, and this show never delivered. And when we finally get some real dramatic appeal, it's during the final 5 minutes of the last episode of the season. And that's just too little too late. The show also rarely feels grounded. There's an amazing amount of time jumps, and I don't mean that in a good way. Sometimes you're going between a couple of years and maybe even some decades, and I don't like that because I never felt settled as an audience member. I almost had to take notes on what year we were in so I wouldn't get lost talking about this with you, and eventually I just stopped because it just got to be way too much. There's also a very weird style of editing here, where episodes never felt like they were put together properly. There were weird transitions in the middle of conversations, and even jump cuts where they weren't necessary. And then when it comes to episodes ending, boy, early on in the series, sometimes they just ended abruptly, and I thought, well, time out. Maybe we needed a few more minutes? And honestly, this series could have used a few more episodes because, boy, this show needed room to breathe. So outside of those technical decisions, guys, when it comes to the acting, outside of Christian Serratos and Noemi Gonzalez, the cast feels wasted. You have Gabriel, Chavarria, Seidy, Lopez, and Ricardo, Chavira. They almost felt like they were being held back, and I wanted them to break out in some moments, and that never happened. And when they weren't held back, nobody was all that convincing, delivering a lot of wooden performances, and that includes Selena's love interest. I had a little gripe with him. He was just a boy with long hair and he played guitar very well. Did he? It also didn't feel like anyone was in sync outside of Selena and Suzette. There were so many moments that showcased the band off stage, and in those scenes I wanted to gain a deeper understanding for our cast, but instead a lot of the conversations felt a little lifeless, so I unfortunately came away thinking, well, I don't really care too much about anyone else outside of, well, Selena and Suzette. Now when it comes to the script and the direction for the series, guys, they're not very good. In terms of writing, we're never getting natural moments of dialogue, and instead we're getting what I mentioned earlier, fluffy arguments that don't lead anywhere. There's really no staying power in those conversations, and I actually felt like they attempted to flesh out some of the stories around Selena's family and people closest to her, but it was just such a by-the-numbers approach where it felt formulaic, and I'm like, guys, I've seen soap operas before. This very much feels like a soap opera stuck inside of the production budget for a Netflix show. I was very curious to see the direction that this show would go in, noticing that it is TV PG, and before you say anything, yes, 1997 Selena was rated PG, but even then, that film felt more grounded because of its mature tone in the moments where it needed to be serious, and here, I get it, they try to put you on a tour bus with Selena, at award shows with Selena, but from episode 1 all the way to the end of part 1, I almost felt disconnected from the vision that Hiromi, Kamata, and the other directors that worked on this series had. And guys, I wasn't completely sold on where the show was headed. It just never convinced me that this was the right direction. Yes, it should be a little toned down for many generations to come so that they can appreciate this, whether they be kids, adults. The thing is, the formula never worked. And honestly, the end product was really underwhelming. So overall, you guys, Selena the series showcases Christian Serratos' wonderful portrayal of Selena. She's almost a splitting image of Miss Quintanilla and even has a awesome stage presence that I absolutely love. So if you're coming into part 1 of this series just to see how she'll act, I think you'll be happy, but once you get past that, unfortunately, everything else is really disappointing. There's awfully unnatural dialogue, lackluster performances, and even technical decisions that made me scratch my head more than once. Selena's story is beautiful, it's inspiring, groundbreaking even, and yes, has a great deal of drama, but we never get the sense of that here in part 1. And sure guys, this is setting up for a part 2, but watching 9 episodes unfortunately became mature, and if this is supposed to tease me and get me excited as a viewer for part 2, well, it didn't do its job. Well, there you have it guys, that's my real review of Selena the series. Man, I really do feel like this show could have been so much better than it was. It had the opportunity to flesh out important moments in Selena's life over the course of 9 episodes, and it just didn't do that. But hey, if you liked it guys, don't be afraid to tell me in the comments that you loved it. Let me know what you guys think of this when you see it, and if you haven't already, smash that like button and hit the big red button below if you want to see more reviews like this. We got a lot more content coming guys, so tap on the bell as well so you stay notified. Alrighty guys, well you know what, I think I'm gonna go listen to Como La Flor like 500 million more times because that's a banger y'all. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. Como la flor. Oh.